Great. So I think I've begun to see the waiting room begin to slow down. So why don't we go ahead and get started? Again, great to see everyone. My name is Jaron McCullum. I work in the Wisconsin Broadband office at the Public Service Commission of Wisconsin. Just want to welcome everyone to the Governor's Task Force on Broadband Access. This is our first meeting, if you will, of our kind of second phase of this group. Of course, the report of the first group, first task force report was released last year in June, but we're excited to get started again and thankful everyone is back and joining us. So I would just like to start off with a few reminders and notes. Just remind everyone that this is a public meeting. It is being recorded. We do have a meeting agenda available on the Public Service Commission events calendar, should anyone be interested, and I did attach that to the calendar invite as well. And I know hopefully we're all well aware of this at this point. Just a quick reminder though, please mute when you're not speaking so we can maintain that audio quality. And then I would just ask any members of the public to remain muted throughout the duration of the meeting outside of the public comment period, which we do have later on towards the end of the agenda. And a final kind of brief reminder that the task force work is, of course, subject to public records law. We will be doing a public records training and presentation at a later date, so you can look forward to that. But just a reminder about that. I think that's about it for welcome and reminders. I will turn it over to Brittany now, since we're not going to do roll call as we've done in the past. We'll do that during the introductions later on in the agenda. So Brittany, I'll turn it over to you.
Great, thank you, everyone. Thank you for attending this afternoon meeting, the first of this year for the Task Force on Broadband. Just to remind everyone, this work started in August of 2020. So we were in the middle of the beginning of the COVID crisis. The work really culminated in that first report to the legislature. And thank you so much for all of your hard work connected to that. I think the report has been used in many different ways. One of the ones. And today you're going to hear from the PSC mostly because I'm sure all of us are aware that there are a number of shifts in the funding structures, the planning needs that have been rolling down. And it's really incumbent on us to marry what's happening now with this next round of our work. We'll be again delivering a report to the governor and the legislature by the end of June. And we're really going to be taking what we did in that first round, which was really create the framework for understanding the Wisconsin issue, working on some new strategic items inside of that, and getting to that part where we can start measuring how we're doing. You know, I'm thinking about Kirk Kiefer, who was a task force member who is now retired. And he really was very, very passionate about our desire to have things that are measurable and we can see how we're doing. And a lot of that is really deeply embedded inside of that report. We're short on time today. It's going to be an hour and a half. So it's going to be kind of action packed. So there's a lot to go through. And we're going to start by just going around and reintroducing ourselves. There are a few more new task members. There have been some shifts. There's been some retirements. Those people getting to retire and enjoy their lives after working. We all want to be able to do that. So we're going to ask you to introduce yourself, maybe your position, especially in the framework of being part of this conversation, and just keep it really brief, maybe about a minute tops. Maybe why this work is important to you, but we'll reserve the storytelling for a later time, just because we want to get through everyone who is on the task force, make sure everyone knows the names and faces. We'll also make sure that you know some of the PSC staffers as well, who you'll be working with as well. So just to do the introduction myself again, Brittany Beyer. I'm the chair of the Task Force on Broadband, but I'm also the executive director of Grow North Regional Economic Development Corporation, one of the 9 regions of economic development in the state. And I'm in the far northeast corner, 100% rural. So this is definitely an issue that's really important. I'm going to turn it back over to Jaron to do the rest of roll call, as it were, and then introductions, and we'll probably bring the staff of the PSC into that as well.
Thanks, Brittany. And just a quick note, we'll do PSC introductions during our presentation. We thought that might be most efficient. So I've got a list of members, and it's really in no particular order, but we'll start with Marta Bechtel first.
Hi, I'm Marta Bechtel. I'm the Executive Director of the Educational Communications Board, which is the state agency responsible for Wisconsin Public Radio and PBS Wisconsin. And during this interim time before we have full broadband in the state, one of the things we are very focused on is ensuring that communications about broadband availability, access points, benefits, those kinds of things are available to K-12 households. So that's what we've been doing lately.
Thanks, Marta. Next, we'll move to Tom Boron. As I'm saying his name, I do believe Tom sent me a note. I think he might be running a bit late, so maybe we'll come back to him. Next, we'll move to Chad Young.
Hi, I'm Chad Young. I'm the CEO for Norvato. We're a local telephone data and video provider based out of Cable, Wisconsin. We serve Bayfield, Sawyer, Ashland, Douglas, and Price County. And our network is nearly all fiber to the home, but always interested in how we can expand broadband access as everybody around our serving territory wants to know how we can get service to them. So always looking to do more in that sense, and happy to be part of the task force.
Thanks, Chad. Jean Pock.
Good afternoon, Jean Pock. I'm the State Government Affairs Manager with TDS Telecom based here in Wisconsin. We are a national provider across the United States in about 36 states. In Wisconsin, we are providing service to more than 150,000 access lines. We are continually working to expand our broadband reach throughout the state. And so I am interested in continuing to participate on the Broadband Task Force to make sure we're all working in concert to best deploy broadband throughout the state.
Thanks, Jean. Next, we'll move to Celeste Flynn.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Celeste Flynn. I'm the Director of Government Affairs for Charter Communications. I've been with the industry for 25 years, but I'm very happy to be involved in more recently the company's $700 million RDOF build that we're hoping to complete sooner rather than later. I also served with many of you on the task force, I would say part one. So I'm looking forward to working with you again.
Thanks, Celeste. That's a good way to put it. Part one. That's I kind of struggled through that too. I didn't quite know how to refer to it. But next we've got Rachel Shemlin, who I don't believe is on the call, but I wanted to call her out. She is a new member. She is in essence the replacement for Kurt Kiefer, who was with the Department of Public Instruction. Rachel is an E-rate and broadband education consultant, again, for the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction. And maybe she can do an introduction at our February 9th meeting date. But I did want to mention that she is a new member. Next, we've got Brett Schupner.
Hello, I'm Brett Schupner, the General Manager, Reedsburg Utility Commission. We're electric and water provider for the city of Reedsburg and Sauk County. And we're also the only municipally owned fiber optic utility in the state of Wisconsin. We have 100% fiber optic utility that covers a good portion of Sauk County and soon to be in Iowa, Richland, and Columbia counties.
Thank you, Brett. Jose Martinez.
Hi, good afternoon. Jose Martinez from UMOS. I'm the Senior Vice President. It's a pleasure to be able to serve the broadband part two, as we call it part one. I oversee a multitude of programs, social service programs in mostly rural and urban communities. So certainly this would be a topic that is deep to my heart in ensuring that our families have access to broadband. Thank you again.
Thank you, Jose. Let's move to Chris Meyer.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Chris Meyer. I'm the Director of Telehealth and Virtual Care for Marshfield Clinic Health System. I look forward to being involved in the continued ongoings of the Broadband Committee.
Thank you, Chris. And we've got a new member on the list, Dr. Chet Streeb, would you like to introduce yourself? And I hope I pronounced your name correctly.
Sure did. It gets pronounced many ways, but yes, that is the correct version. Hi, I am Chet Streeb. I serve as the Associate Vice President and Chief Information Officer for North Central Technical College in Wausau. I've been with the college since '96, so I've dedicated most of my career to technology and higher ed. I'm extremely interested in helping our rural students gain access to broadband, thus gaining access to educational resources. And as Jared mentioned, I am new to the task force. Thank you.
Thank you. We're pleased to have you. We'll move to Chris Herjong next.
Hello, my name is Chris Herjong. I'm the CEO of Hmong American Peace Academy, a charter school in Milwaukee. We currently serve nearly 1,800 students, K through 12th grade. And I'm really excited to be part 2 of this broadband task force as we focus on bringing services to urban children, particularly low-income families that need the service and deserve the service. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move to Emily Dittmar. Emily, are you there? I'm actually not seeing you in the attendee list, so maybe we'll come back. And that brings us to another new member. We've got Jennifer Schilling. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Good afternoon. Thank you. I'm Jennifer Schilling from Dairyland Power Cooperative. We are a generation and transmission cooperative based in La Crosse, Wisconsin, with 18 member co-ops in Wisconsin, but also member co-ops in Minnesota, Illinois, and Iowa. I've been at Dairyland for 1.5 years or so. And before that, I served 20 years in the legislature, 10 years in the assembly representing La Crosse, and then the last 10 in the Senate representing Western Wisconsin, and served as the Senate Democratic leader. So I'm excited to be a former and be a private citizen now, but it's nice to see some familiar faces, and I look forward to the work here. Our cooperative has our own internal 5-year fiber deployment project, but we're also interested in middle mile and supporting our member co-ops with their interest in build out of broadband and internet.
Thank you. Andy or Andrew Faust?
Andy's fine. Good to see everyone again. Andy Faust from the North Central Regional Planning Commission. Our office is located in Wausau. We kind of cover the counties in the north central part of the state from Vilas all the way down to Adams and Juneau. And I've been around a long time, been doing this for 30 years. And I think I'm the only mapping guy on the whole committee too. So if you guys need mapping questions, send them this way.
Thank you, Andy. And we've actually got another new member on my list here, Matthew Gabrielis. I hope I pronounced your last name correctly. I'm not sure I did, but please correct.
Close enough. Matthew Gabriels with Gabe's Construction, 4th generation contractor. We've been in business since 1942, and we've been putting fiber in the ground for, oh goodness gracious, since middle 90s. Thank you.
Thank you. And I made a note about your pronunciation, so hopefully I get that next time. We'll move to Dr. Robert Earl Baker III.
Hi, this is Biko. I'm an instructor, a technologist, and also proud to be my 2nd year on the committee. I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, but currently in Seattle right now in a co-working office, so it's a little loud where I'm at.
Sounds good. Thank you, Biko. We'll move to Lori Collins.
Thanks, Jaron. Hi, everyone. I'm Lori Collins. I'm the owner of SonicNet Internet Service in Eagle River. We provide fixed wireless and soon to be fiber to the home service in Vilas County and Oneida County, a little bit in Forest County and Upper Michigan as well. We started in 2007, so we've been at it for almost 15 years now. And I'm glad to be back. And Matthew, I wrote your name down. I might be talking with you.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Gail Pike, would you like to go next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Gail Hike. I'm with the University of Wisconsin-Madison Division of Extension, and I'm a community development specialist working in broadband, and I work with communities statewide. My office is in Phillips, in northern Wisconsin. I work statewide with groups and communities on adoption, access, and we're doing some research on affordability right now.
Thanks, Gail. Nice to see you. Why don't we move to Shannon Clark?
Thanks, Jaron. I'm Shannon Clark. I'm the CEO and General Manager of Richland Electric Cooperative in Richland Center, Wisconsin. 31 years in that role and 25 years involved in telecommunications. Was part of the creation of a company called Genuine Telecom, which was a partnership between two telephone cooperatives and our own cooperative. And I also serve on the board of directors for the National Rural Telecommunications Cooperative, serving approximately 900 telephone or 900 electric and some 650 telephone cooperatives throughout the United States with planning services for broadband expansion.
Thank you. Sal Carranza?
Hello, good to see everybody that was part of the Task Force 1 and some of our new members, welcome. My name is Salvador Carranza. Just like Kurt, I retired almost at the same time as Kurt. I was the Senior Policy Advisor for the University of Wisconsin System Administration, in particular in academic and student affairs. But I'm still very connected to education issues. In particular, in the community, I'm the vice chair of the Boys and Girls Club of Dane County. I'm also on the board for economic development of the Latino Academy for Workforce Development and many other organizations here in the States. So thank you very much, everybody. I'm glad to be back.
We're glad to have you. State Representative Beth Myers. I'm not seeing her on the attendee list, so maybe we can come back. State Representative Jeffrey Mursaw.
Good afternoon, everybody. Glad to be here today, and I represent the 36th Assembly District, which is a very rural area up in northeastern Wisconsin.
Thank you. State Senator Howard Marklein. And State Senator Brad Path. Why don't we quickly circle back? I think I saw Tom Boron join us. Tom, would you like to just give a brief introduction?
Thanks, Jared. Yes, I just got out of our IT committee meeting, and thanks to broadband, that's become a really popular topic on my committee agenda. And actually, I'm up in Washburn County at the northwestern part of the state, in which we were the black hole for broadband here until recently, where the PCS, with the great work they've done. We had discussion with 3 vendors at our meeting, just as far as providing broadband through this next grant cycle. So very encouraging. So we are making some headway up here. So thank you.
That's exciting to hear. I don't see any of the other members that weren't available when I was making introductions, but I just generally open up to other members. Should I maybe have forgotten you, or had you joined a bit late? All right, not hearing any, I will turn it back over to you, Brittany, to kind of transition us through the agenda, if that makes sense.
Great. Great. So following along on the agenda, the next step I'd like to take is introduce everyone to Kristen Runge. So Part one was led with a facilitator with Jessica, and she did a wonderful job. Her duties have expanded, so she wasn't exactly ready to take on the next year. So we reached out into our pools of associates, and Kristen's name came up, and I'm really excited that she's going to help us kind of sculpt what we're going to be doing in the next rounds. It was really beneficial to have that outside eye helping us figure out what the structure looked like, what we needed to make sure we were not missing inside of the conversations. And her office at the UW does immense work. And so there's lots of resources that she can tap into as well. So thank you again, Kristen Runge, for stepping up as facilitator of the work. And I just want to give you a couple of minutes to introduce yourself to everyone.
Well, thank you very much, Brittany. And I'm very excited to be here and working with everyone as the facilitator, and filling Jessica's shoes is something I hope to do well over the next few months. A little bit about myself. I work pretty closely with Gail at the Division of Extension in the Economic Development Administration University Center that we are both a part of. My disciplinary background, my focus on most days is how media use and access to media shapes public opinion around economic issues and environmental issues. And on most days that does not involve broadband access, except for the past couple of years, where we're really looking at that very closely at the EDA University Center to understand how that shapes our economy and our opportunities at the Division of Extension. So I'll have access to some of that research and some of those resources as we're moving through this process. And as you all want me to bring that information to the table, I'm happy to do that in whatever way possible to make your job a little bit easier. In addition to working with the EDA University Center, I'm a community economic development specialist and a researcher with the Division of Extension. I'm based out of Madison at the Pyle Center on the UW campus, but I work statewide with communities on a number of issues surrounding economic development. And I see several of the names on here of people that I've worked with before, Sal through the University Alliance. Lori, I think we messaged a couple times during a summit that we were on a few weeks ago or a few months ago. And so I'm going to be getting familiar, hopefully, with everyone on the task force and serving as a resource. I will dump into the chat box my office phone number, my cell phone number, and my email, so that if there's anything that you see that you need over the next few weeks or resources that I can help marshal, please do let me know. Other than that, that's about all I have for an introduction. Hoping to be of use to you as a group as we're moving forward through this. Back to you, Brittany.
Great. Thank you, Kristen. So the bulk of today is going to be handed over to the PSC to really learn about the shifting landscape, right? So I think all of us are well aware of the infrastructure bill passing that has ramifications, what's happening on the state and the local level. They're going to be able to give us some updates related to the report that was that we've turned in, and then we'll go from there. There's definitely going to be time for questions from you all as well. So I'll hand that over to Jaren and team.
Thank you, Brittany. If you just want to give us a moment to get the slide sharing set up. Alyssa, did you plan to do that, or did someone else plan to do that? Perfect, thank you. Again, I'm Jaren McCollum. I just wanted to say thanks, obviously, for allowing us to do this presentation, and thanks to the members again for attending. Just to reiterate, my name is Jaren McCollum. I am the Strategic Initiatives Coordinator in the Wisconsin Broadband Office, which is housed at the Public Service Commission of Wisconsin. And before we get started, I think, as I mentioned earlier, why don't we just go ahead and do some brief introductions of the PSC staff. Alyssa, would you like to go next?
Hi, everyone. Alyssa Kenny. I'm the State Broadband and Digital Equity Director here at the Public Service Commission, and I'm happy to present to everybody today, and I am going to pass it to Jennifer Smith.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jennifer Smith. I'm the Federal Broadband Grants Supervisor, and I'm going to hand it off to Sawyer Bolt.
Hi, I'm Sawyer Bolt. I'm one of the federal grant specialists here, and I'm going to pass it on to Jason.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jason Kuhn with the Broadband Office. I work as a grant specialist on our grant programs, and I will pass it off to Milena.
Hello, everybody. My name is Milena Bernardinello. Sorry for the mask. Here are in the office, so cannot take it away. Hope you can hear nicely. I work as a GIS and broadband data analyst, working primarily with the map that you're going to see in the presentation. And hopefully we can provide answer if you have any question related to that. And I pass it to Coulter.
Hello, everybody. I'm Coulter Sikora, the GIS lead here at the PSC, and certainly with all broadband MAPI related questions, especially tied to the PSC, feel free to hit us up for questions along with the expertise that Andy talks about as well, and Milena. So do we have anybody else on the line? Dennis, I think, is here as well, so I'll pass it to him.
Yes, hello. This is Dennis Klyla, and I work in broadband office as well. And my focus right now is on the current state broadband grant round that's open. So I think that's everybody in our office, isn't it?
I wanted to give an opportunity as well. Christy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sounds great. Thanks, Jaron. Hi, everyone. I'm Christy Nieto. I'm the Division Administrator at the Commission for the Division of Digital Access, Consumer and Environmental Affairs. So that's the area of the Commission that includes the Broadband Office. And really happy to see everybody again and excited to see new faces too. And I just want to say for our new members joining, I think you'll find this group to be a very knowledgeable, engaged, and very effective group that I think you will be proud to be a part of. And we're excited for part 2 and just putting the same offer out there that you've heard from the PSC staff. Let us know what we can do. If you have ideas, questions, any sort of discussion or help you need whatsoever, you can reach out to any one of us. And we're looking forward to it. I will pass it to Matt Sweeney.
Sorry, you caught me by surprise there, Christy. Hey, everybody, Matt Sweeney, the Public and External Affairs Director here at the Public Service Commission. I work in the Commissioner's Office. I just want to say, on behalf of our chairperson, Becky Vach, thank you for your service on this task force. And on behalf of the governor, thank you for everything you're doing for the state. It's incredibly important issue for our state right now. And it really is going to take kind of the boldest and brightest to kind of come together and find ways to kind of solve these challenging problems that we have at this topic. So again, thank you for your work on this, and look forward to listening in to all your meetings. Thanks.
I hope I'm not catching anyone off guard, but Jarrell, would you like to briefly introduce yourself?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Jaron. I'm Jarrell Ballard. I'm the Communications Director here at the Public Service Commission of Wisconsin. So any press release or information that is sent out to the public typically goes through me and Matt, and we work closely on putting out any op-eds from the chairperson as it relates to broadband. So feel free to sign up for our press releases. If you want to do that, you can do that on the PSC website and you'll stay informed that way. Thanks, Jaron.
Thanks, Jarrell. Laura, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Jaron. Hi, everyone. My name is Laura Fay. I am the Universal Service and Digital Equity Manager. I've been with the Commission for a few years. I was previously in the Division of Consumer Affairs, so I'm glad to be joining the Bureau of Broadband, Digital, and Telecommunications Access, and happy to be on the meeting this afternoon.
And last but certainly not least, Kathy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi. Oh, I don't think there we go. Kathy Andrus. I'm the support person for the Public Service Commission. So I end up attending a lot of the meetings, scheduling and whatnot. So I'm here to help out. So don't hesitate to reach out and ask any questions. Thanks.
Thank you. And I did notice we did have, I believe, Colin Mead joining us just now. And Colin, I believe you work for State Representative Beth Myers, if I'm not mistaken. We did introductions earlier, and I just wanted to, I saw you join. So if you wouldn't mind just doing a brief introduction, that might be useful for us. I thought I had saw Colin join, but Colin, if you're able to unmute and do an introduction, that'd be great. And if not, we can do the PSC presentation. Why don't we move ahead? So I just instinctually muted myself there. Thank you, everyone. Jeremy McCollum again. Just before we get too far into this, I just wanted to say, generally speaking, the Public Service Commission of Wisconsin, you'll probably hear that referred to as PSC or commission or some variation of that, just so everyone's familiar with that acronym. And similarly, the WBO is often referred to as the Wisconsin Broadband Office. So I just thought I would kick us off with those acronyms so no one's caught off guard or unfamiliar. And I just wanted to also say that generally speaking, the PSC and WBO are charged with assisting the task force in an administrative capacity. And as was mentioned earlier, we'll take questions at the end. If we could go to the next slide. So I want to talk a bit briefly about the Broadband Office vision and mission. And the mission of the WBO is to make high performance broadband more accessible, ubiquitous, and affordable in Wisconsin. And as part of the PSC, the WBO really serves as the leader and coordinator of broadband goals, maps, data, strategies, et cetera, across the state. And our vision is that all Wisconsinites have the information technology needed to fully participate in society. So how will we reach our goals, or how are we reaching our goals? And this is a slide that I'll briefly talk about. I think we'll dive into a lot of these elements in more detail later on, but at a high level, I think leadership and vision is a key component. Again, we see ourselves as that leader and convener and coordinator of broadband strategies across the state. And an example of that is staffing the task force like we're doing now. Data and maps is another key one. We'll talk a bit about that later on. We're always striving for more accurate, more timely, and just quite frankly, better maps, data and analysis. And we have lots of public facing maps that are available for use. Strategic investments in infrastructure, very focused on directing and coordinating funds, both state and some federal funds to those areas of highest need and those highest need locations in the state. An example of that would be our Broadband Expansion Grant Program. Fourth on the list, the Digital Equity and Inclusion Framework. I think this was very clearly and well put in our first task force report, is that we know that availability alone is not enough. It's more than just having the physical infrastructure. It's promoting adoption, device access, digital literacy, affordability, and more. So, and the Wisconsin Broadband Office has been convening a digital equity and inclusion stakeholder group and working in that area. And finally, partnership and capacity building. I think this one really speaks to the fact that we know that technical assistance, education, facilitation, those kinds of things are key needs at the local level. I was actually at a meeting last night with Iron County, talking about things that they can do and plans that they can put in place to put themselves in a good position to succeed with funding coming down the pike. So doing things like that is another key component of what we do at the Broadband Office. So next, I'll talk a little bit about our broadband programs, our Broadband Office programs. Again, I'll talk very generally about them. I think we'll dive into more detail later on. But our broadband expansion grants, we've used several different funding sources, again, both state and federal, and that's really aimed at expanding broadband infrastructure into those underserved areas of the state. Broadband Forward and Telecommuter Forward are two voluntary certification programs that, in the case of Broadband Forward, streamlining administrative procedures, and Telecommuter Forward focused on promoting telecommuting. COVID-19 and pandemic response, we've done quite a lot there, listing pandemic offers from providers as earlier on in the pandemic, listing Wi-Fi locations, setting up a phone and internet helpline to assist residents if they need someone to talk to and kind of sift through or look at their options that might be available to them, and also distributing funding for 12 rapid response broadband projects leveraging some CARES funds. And finally, on this slide, the Connectors pilot program was a partnership with the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, WEDC, and that was aimed at providing technical assistance to communities. And in terms of resources that we have available, again, I've mentioned this before, but we have a lot of maps, a lot of tools that can help both public and private and policymakers, et cetera, look at what broadband might be available and kind of sift through some of those decision points that they might be making. Again, staffing the task force, providing administrative support, and finally, the digital equity and inclusion, and really placing an emphasis on things like affordability and viewing the issue through a digital equity lens, I would say. Next, I'll turn it over to Dennis to discuss the State Broadband Expansion Grant Program. Dennis?
Dennis, you might be on mute.
Sorry, I'll try again. I wanted to speak to this state grant program that's currently open and accepting applications. I've been around this program long enough that I can remember the first couple of years when we had a budget of $500,000 and we're able to offer 7 grants in the first 2 years. We're now on the second of 2 back-to-back $100 million grant rounds. So the money that has come into the program and is just amazing. And we certainly appreciate the support of Governor Evers and everybody else that's helped us to grow this program. There's enough grants now that we've actually split our work group into two sections. I'll touch on the grants that are funded by the state legislature, and then Jennifer will follow quickly. There are grants that are funded with federal dollars but are administered by our broadband office. The applications, as it says on the screen, are due March 17. There's a slight wrinkle with this current grant round. The funds, instead of being appropriated directly by the legislature in the state budget, will actually be the state will go out and sell bonds and will receive the proceeds from that sale to fund the grants we're going to be using this year. But the focus of the state broadband grant program has not changed. We're still using the grant round to extend broadband service to underserved areas in the state, and we'll also again prioritize applications that propose to serve unserved areas in the state, the areas that are most in need of service. Next slide. One of the odd wrinkles that comes up because we're shifting back and forth between a state-funded and a federal-funded program, each authority that provides those funds has the opportunity to provide their own little spin on who should be eligible for a grant and how the grant applications should be scored. And we respect those. I mean, we certainly do follow those rules. The state program is, the rules are set up by the legislature in statute, and they're slightly different from the rules that we used in the last round, which was funded by the federal government through the Treasury Department. I put in 2 slides here because I wanted to really hit the eligibility piece of that. There's some slightly different scoring rules as well, which for anybody on the call that's interested in applying, The scoring rules are available on our website in the application instructions, and we also have a webinar posted there. You can listen to that webinar. But the eligibility rules are important. If you submit an application and you're not eligible, that application doesn't reach the merit review. It doesn't get scored. So I wanted to make sure and use this opportunity to hit these rules a little bit. These are the same rules that have been used for state broadband grant rounds in the past. You have to be an organization organized for profit or nonprofit. Cooperatives, both telecommunication cooperatives and electric cooperatives, are eligible organizations. Any telecommunications utility can apply as well. But the key one here is the number 3. If it's a municipality or any county, a subdivision of the state that's applying for a grant, you have to have a partner, either another eligible organization or a telecommunications utility. Typically, the way this requirement is satisfied is that a village or township that's applying will partner with a broadband service provider to submit the application. But the rules there, it's enforced. If anybody has any questions about it, you're welcome to give me a call. If I can go to the next slide. The second aspect of eligibility that's different with a state grant round from the prior federal grant round is in the area of what's eligible territory. With a state grant round, an area that is served by fewer than 2 providers offering a 25/3 service are in play. That excludes areas that are more urban in nature, that have a cable service and a telecommunications service in the same area that's up to speed. But this definition is a little bit more generous than the one we were working with for the state grant round. But again, if there are any questions about this, please let me know. This would be another eligibility requirement that we would enforce and exclude applications that didn't meet the requirements. So this could be important. That's all I had for the state broadband grant rounds. Next, I'll turn it over to Jennifer, who will talk about the federal funded grant programs we administer.
Thanks, Dennis. As Dennis mentioned, my name is Jennifer with Sawyer Bolt, who is also on the call. We're part of the new federal broadband grants team that was put in place around the time of the federal ARPA award. And I'd just like to throw out the fact that even though we're new, Wisconsin was the second state in the nation to get the awards out the door. So we're pretty proud about that progress already. We are continuing to add staff and to expand our capacity and our expertise around federal guidelines, rules, regulations to manage federal funds. This seems like a great time and a great group to also add that we're hiring several positions. So I'm going to put my email in the chat. Please find me if you have any ideas or thoughts or want to recommend anyone or would like the PDs for those positions. We are very excited to start working with the grant recipients and to help execute successful projects around the state. Next slide, please. Just to give you a very high-level overview of what's happened so far with our ARPA grants, Governor Evers did allocate $100 million of the state local fiscal recovery funds to us. The commission awarded 83 grants in the fall of 2021 for a total of $100 million. And the projects will service, at this point, projected to service 28,986 residences, 1,361 businesses, and a grand total of 30,347 with fiber to the premise. So off to a great start, and that's the report from the federal team. Next slide.
Thanks, Jennifer. Next, I'm going to talk a little more about the statistics from our grants, and this will include both the state program and the federal program. So starting with awards, we have awarded $178 million in grant funds. And with that, we have managed to leverage $219 million in private and community contributions. We have awarded 363 projects, of which 148 have been completed, which is about 41% of the total. In terms of the technology that's getting deployed, it's mostly fiber at 70%. And following kind of in a distant second would be fixed wireless at 16%. But one interesting to note is that for the last 3 rounds, fiber projects have actually rose to about 85% of the total projects, which I think shows that providers are switching more to fiber. In terms of what we're targeting, we are planning to serve 23,000 businesses and 336,000 residential locations with our current grants. We have projects in every county of Wisconsin except for Milwaukee County. So as you can see, our projects are pretty widespread and we're having a large impact on the state. And next, I'll turn it back to Jaron.
Thank you, Jason. So I wanted to briefly talk about some of the community support and outreach that we're doing. I kind of mentioned it earlier. I was working with Iron County last night at a county board meeting, but I won't go into those specifics. But I first want to talk about Broadband Forward. That is a program that launched in 2016. And again, it's a voluntary program for cities, villages, towns, and counties that are looking to, in essence, roll out the welcome mat for broadband expansion. They would do so by passing a model ordinance, and that streamlines administrative procedures at a local level, does things like appointing a single point of contact for broadband applications, adhering to timely permitting timelines and charging reasonable fees, those kinds of things. And we've got almost 70 communities so far, and that was again launched in 2016. And you can see the map of the communities off to the right there, and we do have a web page if you're curious for more information. And similar but separate is Telecommuter Forward. And again, that's a voluntary program for cities, villages, towns, and counties that are looking to support and promote telecommuting options in their community. And oftentimes I've seen communities use this as an economic development tool, a promotional tool to attract potentially new residents to their area. Maybe they have the opportunity to telecommute and work from an area if there's a good broadband. So we oftentimes see it successfully leveraged as an economic development or promotional tool. In the case of this one, community would pass a model resolution, again, simply saying that they are promoting and supporting telecommuting options in their community. And we have almost 60 communities in the case of Telecommuter Forward, and that was launched in 2018. To wrap us up here in terms of the community support and outreach, back in 2020, I would say the fourth quarter of 2020, the PSC in partnership with the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation launched our Broadband Connectors pilot program. And that was really aimed at helping communities better identify and capitalize upon opportunities to increase broadband access. And I think this speaks to the need that I mentioned earlier, that there's a need at the local level for assistance when it comes to planning, getting their ducks in a row, if you will, and those kinds of things. So this was a great opportunity to assist 6 communities with that kind of service, kind of one-on-one service and kind of navigating through a broadband expansion journey, if you will. So they did receive 96 applications in almost a week and a half application window. So there was a lot of demand out there. Unfortunately, there was limited capacity to take those communities on, but spoke to the need out there. And that's something that I think could serve as a model. And I think it really highlights the need about that local technical assistance at the local level. So with that, I will turn it back over. And I think we're going to Coulter and Milena.
Hello, folks. So I think everybody can hear me at this point. Yes, we're going to go ahead and go into broadband mapping and data, largely from the focus of how we've responded to round 1 of the governor's task force from 2021. So if we can move on to the next slide. Of course, the flagship of the mapping team at the broadband office remains the Wisconsin Broadband Map. A lot of you, maybe all of you, are familiar with what this tool is and does. Its main function is to display advertised coverage for residential customers statewide. And the theme that's really become more and more of a component of this map over the last few years is the voluntarily submitted coverage data coming from our internet service provider community, which has played a greater and greater role in the timeliness and the geographic accuracy of this map. We've been running a data collection program here at the PSC since 2018. And in the last year or so, since the pandemic really kicked off, we've been able to make some headway with our provider community to drive this map forward some more. Now, I will warn you right now, this map graphic here is from our last data collection round in late 2020, early 2021. So the points that I really want to drive home are, at this point, greater than 2/3 of our internet service provider community, that is fixed internet service provider community, wireline or fixed wireless service, has given us coverage data in some form or another here at the PSC directly, rather than us having to pull that data in from the FCC. What's really exciting about this is over 40 providers from our statewide community, which I estimate to be roughly 100 providers. I'm aware that there's some providers that haven't been reporting to the feds either, so we don't know exactly what that number is, but over 40 providers gave us entirely granular or sub-census block, or if you're a mapping geek like Andy, Milena, or myself, spatial mapping submissions, basically that allows our maps to be more geographically accurate to show where coverage is and isn't throughout the state. And what I've been really excited about, especially since I've had a lot of telephone or Zoom meeting time with a lot of folks in the provider community, is really just watching that interest coming from the providers themselves to get a better handle on mapping their coverage, sharing that information with us and wherever else they need to in order to help drive the local kind of broadband coverage needle forward for their communities, for their company, ultimately for us as a state as well. So it's a lot of fun working with providers to help drive that needle forward. And I really hope that on a kind of on a technical level, the provider community and the PSC can continue to work together to help improve this map and help make expansion more intelligent. We can go ahead and jump to the next slide. So, of course, that covered a lot of that internet coverage component of things, but we also had an emphasis on getting more in touch with the affordability and adoption components of internet across Wisconsin. And part of that is being able to retrieve information from our consumers, our citizens, our visitors, et cetera, on what they're really experiencing with the internet, both in a qualitative and quantitative sense. So an idea that's been brewing admittedly since 2020 is getting very close to coming out to the public light, which we hope we can serve up in partnership with other tools that are out there. So we'll go ahead and introduce what we call the Wisconsin Internet Self-Report, or WISER. Ultimately, we want it to serve as a template to gather connectivity, quantity, and quality data here throughout the state in partnership with tools like the GeoPartners-led project that rolled out recently. We believe that there is a purpose for both of these tools to really serve and help us understand the internet landscape. Ultimately, the core of this questionnaire is designed for us to be able to do surveying for an indefinite amount of time. The PSC's had a couple of broadband survey programs over the years that had very short time windows, and admittedly trying to connect the dots from our 2013 demand survey to our 2016 survey to trying to make something these last couple of years hasn't been very easy. And we want something that's a little more evergreen, and we believe we have this with this WISER tool. It's also customizable so that we can work with local planning entities at the county or regional level, or at the sub-county level, so that we can make slightly more specified surveys for their own purposes. And to be clear, this does have a qualitative survey component and a quantitative Ookla speed testing component, contrasting that a bit with the GeoPartners and Grow North tool that uses MLabs as their speed test mechanism. And what I'm hoping is that we can leverage those two speed testing bodies so that we can provide at a statewide level a more consistent understanding of broadband speeds, regardless of testing tool, and with consistency across those tools in mind. We have a note here that the expected release date is this month. I will tell you, I just polished off some edits on that survey while waiting for this presentation to start. So I'm hoping we can roll that out really soon. And I'm going to turn this over to Milena. Milena, if you want to throw anything else in about Wiser, please feel free. Otherwise, you can take the floor for the next slide.
I would like just to add that we are trying to capture, and I think it is kind of unique in our attempt and in our structure, to capture both those that are internet consumers, so when they have internet access, which will be able to take an internet questionnaire. But we also want to reach those that do not have this possibility. And so as you see the little green highlighted in the image, we have a questionnaire designed in a way that can potentially be able to be used through an interview base or a call by those that do not have access. And we are hoping to receive calls, and we are going to specify later on when we release the whole questionnaire, how these people can reach us, because we would like to really know how we can help people that do not have internet access yet, how to get it. So that's all my addition on this part. We are very excited about this project. Hope you are going to follow us in that. The next part I want to speak with you about it is another tool that we have available. And you have heard a little bit about the FCC criteria and how the speed data is collected. And you have heard it last year. Many of you have heard very deeply about that. To overcome this limitation, last year, the state of Wisconsin decided to join other states in partnership with the NTIA on a specific branch they run, which is the National Broadband Availability Map. And this is a program. And this program provides a GIS platform which allows for the visualization and analysis of federal, state, and commercially available data set. And this tool can give us an ability to confirm our coverage, zero in some other metrics, and also everything that can relate to broadband coverage goal. And the federal group is collecting a lot of data that might be a little bit more difficult for us to reach out, at least for the moment. Recently, the MBAM, which is the acronym this program is called, was revamped. So if you saw the presentation of this last year, this year I can present you something slightly different. They create 3 new apps. One is the NBAM Fixed Broadband. The other one is the UCLA versus FCC 477 dashboard. And they also have another set of application for other sets of data they are collecting nationwide. The new UCLA versus FCC broadband dashboard that they produce is very useful because they are comparing FCC Form 477 speed test with the UCLA speed test, and they presented the median value. Oftentimes you see speed test presented as a maximum speed test or minimum, but it's very important to understand the media when you collect more tests. And what they have done is practically presenting this information in terms of median value and in terms of temporal data. So this dashboard is presenting every speed test collecting going back to 2014. Very difficult to find. They did an excellent job on putting together all this data set. I couldn't show you here, but if you want to see it later, I can be more than happy to show you. The other part that they put together as new is the MBAM Fixed Broadband application, which is what you're seeing here in this slide. And this is the one highlighted in red on the right side. And that provides information at multiple geography scales about speed, providers, technology type, and internet cost. Internet cost is one of the conversation has been happening a lot of time in terms of particularly to affordability and then adoption. And they have a source that they are able to collect, gather data from. He has his own limitation, but it's a good starting point to understand what's going on the ground. The pop-up I displayed to you here on the left is showing in this particular case a summary table of the UCLA speed test result. in comparison to the FCC data for a block. As I say, they are different geography, but also a speed test data aggregated at 100 square meter as a different geography that is very useful to compare different geographic speed tests one against the other. As you know, blocks are different in size. Therefore, sometimes comparing one to the other is getting difficult. The MBAN is able, with their powerful computing system, to practically develop this data in a different aggregating format. And these are the kind of hexagon you see over here. And sometimes when you compare or want to see a much deeper level what's going on within a block, this is a wonderful geography that they put together for us to compare. And it gives you a very interesting different result, also telling you how many tests has been collected in certain area. You know, the more tests are providing more accurate information. So overall, although this platform is only accessible for us as a Wisconsin Broadband Office personnel, because of the commercial Ookla data set that is also not downloadable, the option we have to support you and support the community is providing static map directly from the platform, like the one you're seeing here. Or we have other, they make available at the county level community report that we can export from another of their application and provide it to you in a kind of PDF format. This is just in a very small report of what they have available in this large platform. With this, I pass it to Coulter for starting the next slide.
So the other initiative that we really want to talk about from a mapping perspective that has really picked up since round one and a little bit in response to round one is really getting a better tracking of our broadband grant programming here in the state, both in the, if you will, present sense and the past sense. And one of the ways that we've been doing this, and Milena will introduce the second one since that's a project she's heavily invested in. But one of the ways that we are doing this is as we've been stepping up our request, turning it into a requirement to get proposed coverage data for each of our broadband grants at this point. We were able for the ARPA round that we completed last year to develop an internal and now presently external mapping application where we've been able to map out all of the proposed coverage areas for each of our ARPA broadband grant applications that we received last year. If you look at the image on the left-hand side of this slide, you'll see a look at basically all of the proposed coverage areas that are many applicants offered through that grant funding program. And Milena, I'll let you talk about grant awardees of years past.
Yes, we decided after a lot of requests and inquiry that it was the time to practically visualize the impact of this 7-year state broadband expansion grant program. And so we designed this project that we decided to call it Broadband Grant Footprint, exactly to visualize the reach of this program and also the additional broadband federal funding grant that the state allocated across time. So you're going to find practically an excursion from 2014 until the last ARPA grant awards they were awarded. The aim is to showcase to community and policymaker the impact of broadband grant over time. So it's going to be a data set is temporal in nature. And we also want to support and be as transparent as possible as a government unit to show where the money were allocated. The data is currently under review. You see a draft here or the first snapshot we're able to get when we mapped all this grant for every year. And the product will be an interactive platform similar to the one we already have, but some additional information will be also added on just kind of more modernized version of an interactive platform. And we are thinking to use an Esri dashboard application. We hope that this tool will help in influence broadband expansion and planning going forward for our side of where allocating more strategically the investment that we are making as a state, but also for community to understand which area on their specific local level area is not served and or is not have received any investment yet. So we're hoping to get this ready relatively soon and have your feedback also potentially as a beta tester. And with this, I'll pass it to Alyssa.
Hi, everybody. I get the home stretch. And so I'm gonna just talk about some of the work we've been doing as a broadband office around digital equity and inclusion. At the beginning of 2021, we formed a stakeholder group, and that stakeholder group came together with two goals. One was to create a digital equity plan, and the other is to strengthen Wisconsin's digital equity ecosystem. And so that's helping practitioners and people who are doing this work connect to each other, helping communities connect to people who are doing adoption work, helping providers who have affordability programs talk to communities who are working with people who need low-income access. And so that group has been active in meeting. I'll do some highlights from that on the next slide. The State Public Service Commission, in partnership with MARTA and Educational Communications Board, did some great outreach through WPR and PBS Wisconsin. And we got 160,000 households enrolled in the emergency broadband benefit. In the state, Wisconsin was 19th in the nation for the number of eligible households that enrolled. So we did a good job, not a great job, but we did a really good job with that. Emergency broadband benefit just transitioned to the Affordable Connectivity Program just at the turn of the calendar year. We can talk about that at a future meeting, but did a good job getting eligible people enrolled in that program. And then nationwide, 2021 was just a fantastic year for internet adoption. So of people who had not been subscribing to home internet, there was a 30% increase across the nation. And so it was the highest increase of sort of non-subscribers. I think we can indicate that the pandemic was a driver of that, but I think also all the work communities and states are just doing and schools are doing related to infrastructure, related to outreach, and related to affordability. And so those are a few kind of highlights of the work. And then I just wanted to talk about the stakeholder group meeting. In 2021, we had 62 different stakeholders attend a meeting. 50 people joined the roster and sort of wanted to share their information and connect to others. People referred 18 new people to the group, including many task force members who helped build our group. Thank you. We had 9 mini presentations. Again, some task force members came in and did some presentations along with other practitioners, nonprofits, higher education institutions, Department of Public Instruction, et cetera. We completed an asset inventory of statewide digital inclusion programs and activities. And then we had a number of discussions about sort of creating the foundation for a plan and then continue to provide relevant and timely information about kind of funding, policy changes, things happening with the emergency broadband benefit to the group with the hope of improving and increasing our outreach regarding digital equity in the state. And finally, I'm going to jump in and just talk a little bit about the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, IIJA. We don't know how to say this acronym yet. If anyone has an idea, we'll take it. And a just really quick overview. This is from NTIA about, this is the money specifically in broadband funding. So BEAD is the program that most people are talking the most about, but that is broadband equity access and deployment. And so there's $42.45 billion in that program, and it's going to be distributed to states based on a formula. And the formula is related to the total population of the state, the number of unserved households, and the percent of geographic area that's high cost. Also under the broadband funding is digital equity funding and the Digital Equity Act. And there's 3 different programs there. There's a planning program, a state capacity program, and a competitive grant program. So again, opportunities for the state to both compete for money and also get some formula money. The 2 tribal and middle mile programs are both competitive across the nation. So the dollars are not distributed in any formula. As I mentioned previously, the emergency broadband benefit transitioned to become the Affordable Connectivity Program, and there's $14.2 billion allocated there. That's a program that a consumer is eligible for. The internet service provider that provides the discount receives the money directly, and the consumer receives the discount on their bill. And then the USDA has an additional $2 billion for Reconnect via the rural utility services. And then there's some private activity bonds that were also part of the infrastructure bill. And so exciting time. There's quite a bit of federal funding coming to states and then also available across the nation federally. And finally, I just wanted to really quickly, I hope just talk about some of the things that have happened in the last year as it relates to the top recommendations from the task force report. And so there's been a lot of progress both at the state and at the federal government related to, and people and programs that have happened that really relate to task force top recommendations. And so I just wanted to highlight some high level ones. One top recommendation from the report was to increase the grant funding. The state grant program had 170% increase, plus an additional 100 million of ARPA funds allocated by the governor. So a huge increase. In this year, we will distribute more money than all previous years combined. The task force members wanted to collect internet access and user connectivity data. And a number of things have happened in that area. One is the Federal Broadband Data Act was funded. So the FCC has funding to do some more granular spatial data collection as required by law. The crowdsourcing tool that Coulter and Milena talked about, Wiser, for the state to be collecting it directly from Wisconsin residents. And then also that we discussed the voluntary data collection program where we're getting really great and increasing voluntary participation by internet service providers providing their geospatial data. One of the report recommendations was to increase broadband consumer protections, and the infrastructure bill requires the FCC to implement a broadband consumer nutrition label, just like the one indicated in the report. The FCC has 1 year to implement that. So that's another report recommendation that will come to fruition. There was a recommendation to establish a state internet assistance program, and a number of different things have happened there. The federal emergency broadband benefit, the federal affordable connectivity program, and Governor Evers also allocated Wisconsin emergency rental assistance to be for internet to be allowable for a period during the pandemic. And so there was some state dollars directly to support families with internet assistance there. The task force recommended a digital equity fund. And like I just mentioned, there is some digital equity funding allocated in the infrastructure bill that will come to states. Increased funding for broadband administration was another task force recommendation. As I hope you have heard, our team here at the Public Service Commission is reorganized to a bureau, and we've brought in a great new federal team that's growing and ready for all the federal rules and regulations for these grants and is managing our ARPA projects currently. And then finally, there was a recommendation from the task force to increase construction permitting and coordination. Just wanted to let folks know the Federal Highway Administration just passed a Broadband Infrastructure Deployment Act, and that new rule begins on March 3rd. And that new rule includes the state having a directory of internet service providers and doing some of that like signaling and registry work that was discussed in the task force report, and that the State Department of Transportation will be implementing that starting in March. And with all of that and all of us talking so much, I think we have a little bit of time for questions. Sorry, Chair, that we went over.
Not a problem. There were some questions back and forth in the chat, but does anyone have any questions that they held for this moment?
Brittany, this is Shannon. This is a question geared towards perhaps Colton and Milana. When I look at the state broadband map, the one that's on the broadband office website, and I see the variety of colors there, and I see some that are purple, and if I click on them, they're 500 or a gig. And they're pretty, and I'll just, in the middle of the map, there's a Marquette County and one that's part of Adams, just as an example. But yet when I go down and I look at, that looks like a really good area. And then I look at the broadband expansion grant, turn that later on, unserved covers that area. for the 2022 calendar year. And Colton, I'm kind of looks like maybe you're looking at that as I'm talking. Can you explain why that is? And then a second question would be on the mapping. Some of the colors would indicate that it's 25 megs, but when I click on identify provider, it'll say 6 megs but that's an advertised speed. I guess I'm a little bit concerned about the message when the public looks at this, that an area that appears to have gig speeds almost ubiquitous shows up as an unserved area when we're talking about the grant expansion.
Yeah, I can jump into that, Shannon, and talk and speak to that a little bit. Just to clarify, is it possible for me to share my screen looking at my colleagues at the PSC?
Just a minute. Should be good to go.
Cool. I will put the request in. It looks like you need to. Oh, wait. All right, that looks better. All right, hopefully that works and you all don't get overwhelmed by my internet tabs. This is the ongoing joke whenever I have to do a screen share. Do you see the Wisconsin broadband map?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So we're looking at Marquette and Adams County, right?
Yeah, just a little bit to your left there. And if you turn on fixed internet speeds, it'll turn purple or
that. I'm going to go ahead and turn these two layers off. Fixed internet speeds is up. So I'm seeing purple here in most of Marquette County and most of Southern Adams County, and also West Central Juneau County to go ahead and loop that into. I'll go ahead and I'm going to turn those two grant layers back on, and I'm going to turn fixed internet speeds off. So this was the Juneau County purple area. Rough. Do you see my cursor?
Yep.
Okay. And this general area where I'm circling is where the big purple area was for Marquette and Adams counties, right?
Yep.
Okay. So as I'm reading this, and correct me if you're seeing things differently, and you may be pointing at an improvement that we probably should make to the broadband map anyway. We're fighting against old mapping standards that I should probably swallow my pride and change. What those areas are in the lighter shade of blue is actually our underserved area.
Yep.
So I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. And if you have one provider offering gigabit speed, but no other provider is offering 25.3 or better, that area is still going to be represented on the broadband map as being underserved for internet access.
So that answers my question directly. And now then I would follow up with, was that requirement that there be two providers in an area? Has underserved always meant there must be two providers, or is that a result of attempting to make a more competitive landscape?
So I'm going to give a couple nods to the fact component of that, and I might not have the full reasoning component of that, or at least not in an official sense. So Jaren, Alyssa, or Dennis in particular, if you want to jump in after I talk, that may be useful. I will say, dating all the way back to the beginning of the broadband expansion grant program, even when our speed threshold was, I think, 3 megs down and 0.768 up megs, there was still a two provider component that was always there. And at least in informal talk, I don't know that it's in statute off the top of my head, though I should remember, competition was always that lean with the at least two provider component. If anybody else wants to fill in, please do so.
Maybe I can just jump in and say the definitions are in statute.
Thank you.
So staff does not, staff and the Public Service Commission Broadband Office doesn't determine what's underserved. It's in statute for the grant program, and unserved is 20% of the FCC standard. So it could change, but it hasn't.
Right. And to be clear, that darker blue area, which I'll go ahead and toggle on and off, technically anything that's unserved is also underserved. But that speed threshold right now is 5 megabits download and 0.6 megabits upload. And that standard is to be unserved, that has to be an area that has 0 providers of that. So competition doesn't factor into the unserved area at all.
Okay. Answers my question. Thanks.
To hit your second question, Shannon, what you're seeing there, and I can probably replicate this, and this is like not even a mapping tech geeky question as much as it is a web development techie geeky question. When you are using the broadband map, and I'm going to go ahead and click on, I think it's Marquette Adams telephone co-op's coverage area down here around Oxford. What you're going to get there as far as the initial identify results, identify being the GIS tool that is in play here, you're basically going to get a stack of results. And a beef I've always kind of personally had with this website as the person who did most of the development on it is you need to be aware that you got to click on that little tiny white arrow there that in my opinion isn't big enough to go ahead and see the other results that are in that area. And like right here, you see really slow access at this point. Click onto other results. Technically, this company offered more than one census block record for that location that I clicked on. So there's multiple entries for Frontier here. And then there's a third Frontier entry that's much quicker, still not fast enough to be purple. But then finally, the fourth result is the Marquette Adams 500 megs down, 40 megs up. So at this point, it's a matter of the not exactly intentional sorting structure in that tool. I've not put thought into whether those should get sorted better. I will say, honestly, this tool is 5 going on 6 years old. I'm not saying we're anywhere on this spectrum right now, but there's a slightly better chance that there's a new tool that would get made before we would go into that nitty gritty. That's an unauthorized guess, but in order to see those higher speeds, you got to click on the map and click on the triangles.
Well, as you know, I have used this map for probably ever since it was invented. And I have to admit that I probably saw that arrow at one point, but today I would not have done that. And that is, I look at that area and I see that it's got, 500 plus. I click on it, and in that exact case, the provider comes up as being 6. And I just counted up to an error and I never hit that little arrow.
Yep, and that is a good piece of end user feedback to hear, Shannon. Like I appreciate it for sure. And like I would agree, like going back to the time when I had time to critically look at this when it was new, it was definitely a weak point in the armor of this application to be critical about it.
Right. Great. That's a great question. Do we have one more quick question? Very quick question. Great. So knowing that we're coming up to the end of our time, the last thing we wanted to talk about is the next part of our work and what is going to be the focus. So if everyone remembers, one of the subcommittees that was in operation and a part of the report was that active network building piece of it. And because we understand that the needs on the local level, where a lot of the infrastructure is lacking and the tools for equity might not be in place, there needs to be more partnerships put in place. There needs to be an understanding of how these new landscapes and funding shifts will influence who's going to be at the table, what resources are going to be in use, what new parts of the solution need to be invented. That's all what we're going to try to focus on this next round. In my understanding, because of the infrastructure bill, there are, again, resources that are flowing down through the PSE for planning. And as Jaron and team and the PSE talked about that map for the broadband connectors pilot piece, that's communities reaching out and saying they need assistance and technical assistance, somebody at the table to help them get ready for these fairly large infrastructure projects, right? How can we be good partners with the communities, with the private sector, with potential funders, with state agencies, thinking about their resources in different ways that they can start working to be part of this solution. So this is a fairly large and new area that we knew was going to be important, and we're going to continue to focus on this. So really imagine some of the resources that we're going to be bringing to your attention with presenters, just as we did last go around. They're going to be of that ilk. Some of the working groups that will start standing up, it will be asking questions and kind of exploring good options that locals have been doing in different areas, or providers who have been at the table in a certain way. And what we want to do in using those as the role models and some of the examples that we want to lift up. And all in all, we want to get to the point where we are offering some solutions to this fairly large structural planning process that we know has so many different elements coming from different angles. You're all a part of this task force because you each have a piece of the puzzle, as I had said from the very beginning. And even in just the questions that we've heard, on the chat and through questioning, I'm really excited how we're going to be looking at how we can tweak certain things that are in existence, how we can really match partners who haven't been matched before, and how we can educate ourselves and our communities so that we can solve this problem and get internet access to all of us. So that is what we have coming up. So I'm really excited to be doing this work again. If you are a new member, I'll probably be contacting you just to start a conversation to get your understanding with that knowledge that you have a little bit of the piece of the puzzle. And then we have, set up a plan of work. If you haven't received the listing for the next coming task force meetings, we're going to be trying to do the second Wednesday, and Jaren, correct me if I'm wrong, the second Wednesday of every month from 1 to 3. So right now, tentatively, it's still going to be in Zoom. Impressively, all of the work that was done that first go around was via Zoom. So there are a number of you that I haven't met you in person. There's a few of you that I met over the summer, and I was very glad to do that in person. So we'll start doing that work. Last time around, we had the subcommittee work at the same time. We'll figure out if that's going to be the same thing as well. But we'll go back and start thinking about the next rounds of work. We have 2 minutes left. Jaren, is there anything you wanted to add from your perspective?
I would just say apologies for running long, a bit rushed there at the end. If there's any questions that we didn't have time to answer, please feel free to reach out to anyone at the PSC. We'd be happy to help you with that. And if anyone didn't get the calendar invite, just let me know and I'd be happy to send that along again. February 9th, March 9th, April 13th, May 11th, and June 8th are our dates, and we'll have an agenda forthcoming for our February 9th meeting. Again, please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions, and if it's okay, Brittany, I'll just ask for public comment now. So if there's any public comment, members of the public can go ahead and unmute and make a public comment. I would just ask that it be brief and pertain to the topic of broadband access. Any public comments? I'll make a last call for any public comments. And just as a note, we do accept written public comment on a rolling basis, and we have directions on how to do that on our task force webpage. So if it's okay, Brittany, I'll move us towards adjournment, and I just want to say thank you everyone for your participation, and please continue to monitor our task force webpage. We've got meeting agendas and recordings and other good stuff on there linked to the task force report previously. So thank you again, everyone, and I appreciate your time and hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.